Hi, we're going to start this unit with a quick review of licensing. We're going to get into the second project, which is quite open, and often students like to try to clone games or use artwork or other stuff from games they've played or used. And so I just want to remind everyone of copyright laws and stuff like that. And now that you're producing games, how do you want to release games and what do you want your games to be? So just a quick overview. Here's the link to the copyright review in Wikipedia for the United States. So United States, all this material, audio, written material, games, all that stuff is subject to copyright law and is automatically copyrighted by default. So if unless it says otherwise, you can assume every thing you find on the internet, everything out there is covered by copyright generally. Now there's a couple exceptions to this, and one of them is fair use. So fair use says you can use some material under certain conditions here, and then the main factors are first the purpose or character of the use. So if you're going to make a profit or if it's a commercial nature, then fair use likely won't apply. Maybe if it's for non-profit educational purposes, then fair use is more likely to apply to this. Unfortunately, there's no strict guidelines or not many court cases related to fair use, and so you have to do a little bit of interpretation of these rules. So the first four characteristics, the purpose, is it commercial or not? And then the nature of the copyrighted work. What are you copying and how much of it are you copying here? So if you're just taking a small snippet or a small graphic or a small part of it, it's not critical to the entire franchise or something like that, then it may not be as important. This relates to the amount and substantialness of the work. How much are you copywriting? Again, so how much of your copying? Again, how that ties into two kind of ties more into the quality of the original work, how well, how the merit of it, and is it fictional, non-fictional. A lot of like non-fictional historical documents aren't maybe as covered as closely here. And again, this is the amount that you're copying here. And then the final thing is the effect upon the work's value. So is what you're going to do detrimental or going to take away from the value of the original work? So that's kind of fair use, and so often you can use that. So if you're just creating a game for this class, then you could imply fair use applies just fine, and you can use any imagery or any sort of resources you want for this class. But then you certainly can't expect to ever do anything outside this class with that work. Because if you're ever to sell it or release it or anything like that, then the fair use doctrine probably wouldn't apply. So now let's talk a little bit of how other works you might find that are in what's often called the public domain or Creative Commons, and what that means here. So there are two similar ideas or concepts: public domain and Creative Commons. So public domain is generally something that is entirely free for use and free for use in any fashion. Creative Commons is a more legalistic, restrictive term, but it gives you limited use, often a fair amount of use. And so often we like to see things licensed for Creative Commons because then we can use them in our games or stuff like that. There are actually a number of different Creative Commons versions or licenses out here. This just kind of talks about them. But so there's like Creative Commons with attribution, requiring you to say where the material is coming from in your work, even if it's commercial. Share alike, so if that means that your work has to also be released under Creative Commons if you're going to use this material. No derivatives, non-commercial. So there's a number of these different Creative Commons versions out here. So again, just keep that in mind as you're going over the material, and also as you're searching for material. So when you're searching for material, let's say I want to use an image of a frog, and so I'm at Google and searching for images of my frog. Remember, you can go under Tools and you can switch usage rights, and you can say I want Creative Commons licenses or something like that, and then you'll just see one frog images that you can use under Creative Commons in your work. Again, you don't necessarily have to do that in this course, but again, it's generally encouraged that you use that. Again, you with fair use, since you're doing this for educational purposes, you could probably use any work, but you might want to consider using material with Creative Commons license when possible.